Hello and welcome to another episode of the Arsenalholics. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy the episode, and please share please share the Arsenalholics with any other Arsenal fans that you think would enjoy listening to us. How's it going, lads? Are you well? Not really, I guess.
Not really, no, but it's becoming quite a regular occurrence. This is not a new feeling, put it that way, this season.
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah. What a week. What a week, and what an end to the week.
Yeah, well, it's not a great start to our weekend, I guess. But so 1-0 defeat at home to Everton tonight. We're recording pretty much straight after the game. Let's just have a chat about, we'll just have a chat about the game in general, really. It wasn't a massively incident-packed game. Obviously, it wasn't a very good performance, but just in terms of how Arteta set up the team, obviously we've got the semi-final, a little bit of a gap until that game, but still a semi-final on the horizon. So there were some changes. Obviously, we were struggling in terms of our forwards. So Eddie Nketiah started up front with Aubameyang and Lacazette missing. Thomas Partey came back into the team, partnering Danny Ceballos in midfield, and Granit Xhaka continued at left back, and Rob Holding and Pablo Mari making up our centre-back pairing. And Leno was back in the team because obviously Matt Ryan started the other day as well. And Pepe got a start as well. So yeah, there were a few changes, but overall a pretty strong team, but a pretty bad performance and another bad Premier League result, especially at home, another defeat. Thoughts?
I didn't have any issue with the team when I saw it, to be honest, given the injuries and the limitations that we had. I think the only real thing you potentially could argue about was should Eddie have started. But, he is the third choice striker. Yeah, the other options, I guess, were Martinelli up front, who I don't think Arteta's ever played up front on his own, or Balogun, who hasn't played a minute of Premier League football, I don't think. So you can't blame him for the squad. I mean, it is what it is. We have injuries. Like 3 or 4 first-team players are out. People are playing out of position, like Xhaka. So yeah, I didn't really have an issue with the squad. Did you guys?
I agree, to be honest. And in flat terms, I think who he picked, what he picked, I think it almost one of those things that it picked itself. The team to some degree.
There's no one left.
So. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think that the selection seemed to be the issue. But whatever approach that we seem to go out with, okay, I think we to some extent, although we lost the game, it wasn't like we were pounded, and as I'm sure we'll get onto, it was an awful goal to concede, but it just created a boring spectacle. And I think going forward, again, can't blame the selection, but the guys on the pitch, they just looked so uninspiring, and we just looked
the
really
build-up
rubbish,
play was just awful. I thought the minute we played it from the back four into the midfield, I thought Partey and Ceballos had another dreadful game. Both of them were like rubbish. And then everyone in front of them weren't that much better. I thought Saka, Smith Rowe, Pepe was probably the liveliest out of the front four. But apart from that, it was just no real pattern of how we want to attack, no real pattern of how we want to build up play, no real idea of how to create a chance. We know with Eddie, the only real way we're going to get him into the game is by putting crosses into the box. And there are a few moments, I thought, at the start where he was getting into a few good positions, but just so ineffective as both him as a striker, but also the build-up play in general.
I would have liked to, as I said in the pre-show, I would have liked to have seen Martinelli start up front. Because if you're saying, he hasn't played him up front before for a while, then it would have been good to just test him out there. and also like he brings so much energy as well to the team performance. So every time he's played, it seems to have raised the energy of the players around him as well. And so if he had played, that might have made a difference to everyone else behind him. And yeah, like I said, that front, yeah, it wasn't, no energy. Just it wasn't fun to watch, and it'll be interesting to see what he does on Thursday night. Like what he'll go with is now. Surely, if Eddie had bagged a couple of goals, maybe that's what Arteta was hoping for. Then he might have been a scoring for Thursday to start up as well. And after what they full collectively did today, maybe he's definitely thinking about what to do going forward for Thursday's game.
I think that's probably what I think he played Eddie because he did get the goal at the end, and I think he was like, well, I have to give him a chance. You can't really argue too much against him saying he doesn't. I don't think you can't say he doesn't deserve it, but at the same time, I agree with you, like with hindsight, maybe Martinelli would have been a better option.
Yeah, but like with the Martinelli situation, it's really interesting because I wonder whether with Arteta, does a manager who sometimes I feel that the selections that he makes are indicative of a manager who feels like he's got a long time in his job and feels like he can do some things to try and plan for a more longer term view. So for example, he's really taking his time over Martinelli. That seems to be quite clear. And he's still like kind of managing Martinelli as a kind of, slowly easing him in, which is fine. Maybe that's the best thing for Martinelli. But it's interesting because it doesn't indicate a great deal of urgency on Arteta himself's side. At the same time, I agree. Like maybe it's because Nketiah scored against Fulham, and he felt that he had to play him today as a result of that. Maybe he felt that was the right thing to do. But I don't think, I think I can't see him playing Martinelli up front against Villarreal on Thursday, without playing him up front today. I think the intention was to do whatever he did today, win, lose or draw. Really, he was going to do the same thing on Thursday. I can't see him playing Martinelli, and I think that worries me for Thursday.
Yeah, that's a big worry. And then also, it obviously persisted with Mari as well ahead of Gabriel, which is another sort of, I think, interesting selection. I think maybe after Gabriel's mistakes sort of recently, I think he probably feels he's got more trust in sort of Mari. And I think that was a very important sort of selection choice as well from him. So I think again, he probably sees Mari as his number one man for the rest of the season on that side of the defense.
Yeah, it's interesting just on the centre backs, right? We've gone from a position where maybe in December or January where we thought actually we've got 4 centre backs here who we can pretty much trust. But actually now, you could argue that all 4 of them actually, Luis is out, but Gabriel, Mari, Holding, they've all got mistakes in them, I think, or just they all don't look the finished top level centre back at this level. I think there's something missing from all of them.
Yeah, agree with that. I think what worried me on just complete reflection when the final whistle went and kind of just thought about the game, I saw 2 teams that were very even, like in terms of quality. And the fact of the matter is, when they put the league table up and they showed Everton and Arsenal, almost neck and neck at Everton, just above Arsenal. When I looked at all the teams above that, I can't say that Arsenal are a better side than any of those teams above us. And that's damning because we're 9th, and it's one thing saying, yeah, we're 9th and, we should be doing better. Yeah, we'd all love for us to be doing better. But we had 2 very evenly matched sides today.
Why do you sound surprised at that, Rog?
I think it's because, again, maybe it's like the last time when we were reflecting on this, it felt like it was slowly getting to the point where it wasn't a case where we could make excuses for games, and maybe this is what it is, and maybe this is just cementing that. I think what I'm surprised about a little bit is we seem to sit here a lot and we talk about some of our players like they're actually really quite good players. Like we do that. We talk about, we'll go through the whole team. We can name loads of positions where I think we talk like we've got quite good players, and then you look at it today and you're like, actually no, like this is our level right now, and the players that are out on that pitch, the ones that have been injured, they've all contributed to this, including the manager. Again, I think we're all really, we're really supportive of the manager overall. I think as far as fan groups go, I think we've all been very supportive of Arteta, but overall, the whole project, players, coaches, manager, whatever, this is really indicative of our level right now, what we saw out there. And that I think is really humbling. And I think it's really starting to hit me that, wow, do we accept this? If we think it's okay, then this is then this is it. And if we want more, what exactly is it that we expect to happen that's going to give us more?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, on the players' side, I think you're right, because I think for so long we had players who were really bad, like players like Mustafi, players like Kolasinac, maybe Socrates, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on him, but players who were like, you could see these players are just not good players. We got rid of those players, and now what we're left with is players who aren't, you look at players like Holding, players like Xhaka, players like Chambers. They're not bad players, but they're not great players either. And the reason they're not great players is because they just, throughout the game, they'll do these odd things like Marie was doing today, like Xhaka was doing, like even like Leno's been doing, where you just think, would an elite defender, would an elite goalkeeper, would an elite midfielder make those decisions? Those little marginal things we've got quite a few players at that level who are just, I don't think will ever be top players, and we're relying on them consistently, like overperforming. Players like Holding, when you think we need Holding to be elite, he's never going to be elite, but we need him to overperform to come close to being elite for us to do well.
I think we get sort of blindsided in tinted glasses when we have like performances like we did against like Slavia Prague, when we can see how good we can be on the day, and then we expect that sort of, going forward, which is I think rightfully we should expect that kind of performance all the time, but I don't know why they can't deliver consistently. And sort of funny enough, so I was having this sort of conversation with our sort of other non-Arsenal group of mates earlier, and I was sort of saying that Arsenal, I think as a squad, I think we've got a good squad, but the difference between our first 11 and second 11, there's not much difference. And it's not, I don't think that's a good thing. So with Man City, they've got a great first 11, and I don't think there's a big gap between their first 11 and second 11, but in a good way. Whereas for us, we've got a lot of good to average sort of players in those positions. Like, you've got Bellerin or Chambers on the right. Our four centre backs, they're all interchangeable, but that's because none of them are outstanding, or at the same time, none of them are terrible either. And we've sort of got that across the whole squad, so that we don't have terrible players or massively amazing players either. So we're in a bit of a lull, I think, at the moment, where we've just got loads of average to good players.
It's only left back, isn't it, that you can really say we have an outstanding left back,
and the gap is,
and then the gap for everything else is such a so much.
Because even Cam, that's central, where Odegaard, Smith Rowe, there's low everywhere else is interchangeable with good to average players.
So I mean, you touched on left back there, Raj. So obviously, I mean, in terms of their goal, I know there were a few incidents, and there was obviously the offside incident in the first half. But just in terms of their goal, so we went. I think that's the fourth game that Xhaka started at left back. I could be wrong, and I think after the first time Arteta tried it, we talked about it, and we were saying, do you think it's an experiment? Do you think it's something that Arteta will persist with? And I didn't think he would, to be fair. And I gave the reason that I said, as soon as he comes up against anyone half decent, he's going to get exposed. So bit of a I told you so moment, but I told you so. I mean, it's true, right? Like, I don't think he's faced anyone of any sort of half quality, half decent level. Richarlison, what did he do to get past him? Like, you tell me. I mean, was it anything that, did he do anything that special? Or did he do anything that, did he completely, was it step overs? Was it, a nice bit of skill? Was it, it wasn't. It was just he literally knocked the ball past him and, to the side of him. And Xhaka's never had that recovery. Can't turn, you can't turn, and he has got no recovery on the turn.
Only mistake. No, I'm not saying only mistake.
That's not the point, though, is it? That's not the point, though, is it? Because this is the thing. Now that's
surely Tierney's made
for Thursday
mistakes as well, right? He must have made.
So you're comparing Tierney and Xhaka as left
I'm not comparing at all. But I'm saying every player in every position makes sort of mistakes once in a while. If the keeper never made a mistake and scored an own goal, then we won't be talking about this.
What? Okay, yeah, but that cross could have. Is it cross that Leno? Obviously, the mistake lies with Leno. I'm not denying that. We'll get onto that, right? I'm talking about Leno, but I'm just talking about
if he recovered or he shot it wide, we wouldn't be analysing because the goal happened.
So that's like saying
over and over again, right?
But when you say but the fact is it was a goal, right? So we're going to analyse it, like. I mean, we can say if to a lot of things, and then therefore, what do we discuss? But I mean, I guess. The reason I'm picking up on it, and again, the reason I'm picking on Xhaka is because he's not been tested these last 3-4 games, if you include this one, apart from probably that moment. There's not really been anyone running at him. There's not been situations where, there's been like 2v1 on him where there's a runner past him and he's not sure which man to go. Does he go to the ball? Does he go for the runner? He's not been left exposed very often, And I think the 3 games that he played in previously, like I said, the quality against him hasn't been there where he's had to be tested. And the first time he was against a half-decent team, against a good player like Richarlison, it's been completely exposed. And I think that's a worry going into Thursday, because now does Arteta look at that and think this is going to be very risky against obviously a good team in Villarreal, and they're going to obviously identify that as a weak point in our team. Does that mean that, for example, Cedric has to come back into the team when he's not really been playing in that? He obviously hasn't played left back for the last few games.
Yeah, the thing is, like obviously, Xhaka was always this risk, right? When you play Xhaka at left back, when you play any midfielder or central midfielder out of position in a defensive role, there's always a risk they're going to get exposed, right? But I think the reason we do that is because of the lack of alternatives. The only alternative there is playing Cedric, and we played Cedric there and we looked equally as bad. So it's not like, I think Arteta knows
we looked bad going forward, I would say, in terms of we talked about this, right? He's a right footer on the left hand side. It limits us going forward, all of that. So I agree with that, but I don't know. Defensively, would you not say that Cedric is a more?
Oh, I agree. 100%.
Is a safer option than Xhaka?
Oh, I think probably, but you would. I think Cedric is definitely a better fullback, even if he plays on the left, than Xhaka is going to be. But I think Cedric has probably been beaten, even as playing as a right back or even as playing as a left back. He's probably been beaten by a winger, and I guess it kind of links to Nero's point, although. In the sense that we wouldn't even really be talking about this if it wasn't like a massive error by the keeper. But I do take your point, Miles. I think at the end of the day, the way it feels like for me is that with Xhaka, there's no doubt about it. That if a winger's going to take him on, the winger's probably going to win. You know that. So the system needs to be robust enough to never expose him. Like it's got to be robust enough to never expose him. And so it's more of, I think, a criticism on the system and the way that whatever protection we had in place in Xhaka it just fell apart, because you can't, it's not fair on Xhaka to criticize it. And I know you're not criticizing him in that way.
Him,
exactly. It's like, it's just more that, like, what do you expect? If you're going to expose him to a winger, he's going to get beaten. And that was a failing from a system perspective.
The other thing is, I think actually the bigger loss here is when we move Xhaka out to left back, we lose him in central midfield and we end up playing Ceballos. I actually think that's probably, over the last 3 or 4 games, we've seen that Partey and Ceballos doesn't really seem. Well, I don't.
Doesn't Partey get a bit more freedom though in Ceballos?
Yeah, Partey does give it freedom. But Partey isn't playing too well at the moment either.
Yeah, is Partey having freedom a good thing?
Yeah, I thought today he was just so uninfluential.
Yeah,
didn't really do anything of note. It just seemed very crowded. I don't know if that was a deliberate tactic by Everton to just crowd out that midfield, but we've looked our best when Xhaka and Partey have played together, I think. And that left back issue is a huge problem, because whoever you play there, you're taking a risk with something, right? You either lose a bit on the attack or you lose a bit on the defense. And maybe you're right, Miles. Maybe like you take the risk and say, actually, I'd rather just keep it a bit tighter and avoid situations like today, and then just hope Cedric can do something going forward.
I'm just really worried if we. This is the concern I raised like 3 games ago. I said this when I think it was after the Prague game when we went through, and I said, I don't know who Villarreal's danger men are, but they must be a half decent team to get to the semi-finals. They've got that Moreno guy who scored 20 odd goals. I don't even know he plays up front, I would assume. But I mean, the worry that I have is if there's a game where from the first minute, the ball goes out to their right hand side, our left, and whoever's on that side just starts bombing at Xhaka, it's gonna like, it could be a catastrophe. Like we could potentially lose the tie against Villarreal in the first half if Xhaka gets exposed or he's left exposed. I know that, I know it's an obvious thing to say, and I know Arteta's gonna, like you said, Raj, the structure needs to prevent that from happening. But when you come up against more decent teams,
it's a big risk to take.
It's a massive risk, and that's what I was a bit. That's why I'm sort of focusing on that point about what happened leading up to the goal with Richarlison. Obviously, it wasn't Xhaka's fault for the goal. I'm not saying that, but it's just that, if he gets exposed, it could be really, really bad for us. But I mean, in terms of the goal, obviously, absolute howler from Leno. I saw some calls on Twitter that Matt Ryan should start on Thursday. Do you guys think that's a bit extreme? Do you think Leno's actually in pretty bad form at the moment? If you look at the last sort of 10 games or so, there's been a few dodgy incidents, I think.
I mean, this is the dodgiest by far. Like, I think, I think if it wasn't for today, like, I still don't really think that you can criticize him too much over the season. I think as far as howlers go, it's one thing if a player shoots at goal and it's a tame shot and the keeper lets it in. Some of those are goalkeeping howlers. When a player doesn't even mean to score and it goes in, that's a serious goalkeeping howler, right? Richarlison didn't even shoot. He didn't shoot. He crossed the ball, right? That's really, that's an own goal. That's like a really, really, that's terrible. So this was a howler. But as far as I don't like us getting into for me on ability, Leno is still our best keeper. He's still an excellent keeper, and I think that almost dropping him, you risk kind of affecting the confidence of your best quality keeper. That being said, do you want to create an environment where you have keepers competing? And if you have that environment, surely Ryan should say, "Hey, hello, shouldn't I get a go now?"
Yeah, exactly. I think, well, you say that Leno is our best keeper, and I know what you mean when you say that, because you look at technical ability, although we haven't really seen Ryan play, but like you'd probably say he is on paper like the better keeper, but at the moment he's not playing like the better keeper. I don't think he's in good form. I think he's made a number of errors since that Wolves game where he ran out. And did he get sent off that game when he got sent off?
Yeah, he did.
He did.
There have been just a couple of things where I'm just like, why has Leno let that in? What Leno should be saving that. Leno should be doing better there. Yeah, he's still making a few good saves here and there, but if you're not going to play Matt Ryan now, when are you going to play him? Like, when is he ever going to deserve a chance? And Ryan, I know it's been 2 games, but he's number 2 for a reason. We bought him not just if Leno got injured, but if and when Leno hit a really bad run of form. I think it's a fair shout. It's a big call to do it right before the biggest game of the season. But if it's a meritocracy and you play based on if you're in form, I think Ryan deserves a shot.
But I can't see Arteta dropping Leno though for that game. It's too big of a game to drop your goalkeeper, I think.
I wonder if
especially if he's sorry.
What's the worst that's going to happen?
Yeah.
Just like obviously with goalkeeper, it's not just about shot saving. It's more about how he communicates with the players around him, and especially looks like Arteta's got his favourite centre backs, and if he's playing for Xhaka left back, and whoever on the right, it looks like it's all about communication and stuff with the goalies as well, and especially Ryan's only played 2 games with those defenders. It's a big game to just throw him into that kind of game. I think
he might worry. Arteta might worry just about more and more instability. He might worry about the fact that we've got Ober injured, we've got Laka injured, we've had a lot of change. Xhaka not playing, and he might just think, I've got to keep as many kind of cogs in place as I possibly can, and based on that, he may not want to pull the trigger, and he may want to keep Leno. But no, I think the meritocracy point is a good question, Aaron. And my preference is that we keep a meritocracy. I like football clubs that have a meritocracy. I prefer that. I wonder though if the injuries will stop him doing that.
Yeah, it's also a type of game as well. If the next game was another Premier League game, then it's worth risking it. But obviously, the way it is, the next game is sort of like a cup final for us, and we have to win, so can't take any risks. So I think for that purpose, he'll keep. That reason, he'll keep Leno.
If we play well against Villarreal, let's just say we play really well against Villarreal on Thursday and get a good result. What, if anything, will that indicate to you guys about the character of the team? And I don't necessarily mean that in a positive way. Where I'm going with this is that we drew against Fulham at home, and we've just lost to Everton. To be honest, we were rubbish in both games. And let's just say if we put on a performance against Villarreal, yay, awesome, excellent. But how will you reflect on these games? Just gone.
If we do turn it on against Villarreal, it's clear that there's a motivational problem. I think, especially if we play a very similar starting 11, because there were moments today when I'm just like, some of these players are walking around the pitch. Even there was a point where I thought Eddie was just walking around. I thought, dude, this is your one shot.
Yeah,
run around like a madman and make things happen. But he was just so passive as well, and he was waiting for things to happen. And even players who usually try and make things happen, I thought Saka was pretty quiet today. Smith Rowe I thought was pretty quiet. And when players like that are not making things happen, you just wonder, is there a resignation that the league is pretty much done? I mean, I kind of feel like that way as a fan.
I mean, I think in previous seasons where we've obviously been at the other end, well, not the other end, but towards the top of the table, we've been generally fighting for top 4. I know that the last few years we haven't. And you see towards the end of the season, the teams around 8th, 9th, 10th, that mid-table region, they're just, neither here nor there in terms of their results, right? And performances. Are we not just in that position? We're just one of those teams, basically.
I agree.
We're used to always having something to play for towards the end of the season in the league. And this season we don't. It's all about the Europa, and we're just kind of, what's the word, ambling towards the end of the league campaign.
Well, I think Aaron said this.
I think that's a fair point. Yeah,
but I think Aaron said this a few weeks ago, and I think it's more and more true as every week goes on. I think if we were in the stadium, if the fans were in the stadium, look, we're not the famous cop end. We're not we don't have this famous atmosphere, but still, I think if the Arsenal fans were in the stadium, the players and manager don't get away with this week after week after week. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure. Either what would have happened by now is the players would be bucking up every game, because at the moment, genuinely, it just looks like they're going, our Premier League, okay, cool, let's just get out of the way, whatever. That would not happen if the fans are in the stadium. So either the players switch on in that way, or the manager doesn't survive. It's one of those two things.
And also another thing is, a lot of these players know, because of the injuries, that they're going to start every week, because there's no one else to really come in. That's why I was really disappointed with Eddie. I was like, come on, just run around. You're probably the only player in this team whose place isn't guaranteed if they're fit.
I thought he was making a few runs in the first half, and he was
first 15, 20 minutes.
He was around, but
after second half, I just thought it's pretty quiet.
But look at again, it's a personnel thing. Martinelli comes on and he probably almost scored he wasn't on the pitch for that long, and he like straight away comes on, he showed energy. So it could be a personal thing as well. Like every time I haven't seen one game where Martinelli's just walking around.
It's true.
Like he's always running. Like even today's one, the chance, it was almost like a lost cause, but he still managed to, get around the defender and do a little toe poke. So he fights for everything. He runs around. So if he had started, and I really do somehow want him to find this, Arteta to find a spot for him in the starting lineup on Thursday. Whenever he plays, he's full of energy, and that is infectious. And the rest of the guys sort of, feel that and do the same thing.
I think as fans, we all want Martinelli to start, Miro, for all the reasons that you said, right? Like he's like, he's kind of like Alexis Sanchez. Obviously, I'm not saying he's at the level of Alexis Sanchez, but that energy that he transmits to the rest of the team, which, to be fair, he's not really doing that in the sense that the rest of the team aren't kind of picking up on that energy, but he does bring that, and he does run around a lot. He does press. He's always looking for opportunities to score. And he's an exciting player to watch. And I completely agree with you. I hope he starts on Thursday, but I just don't see Arteta doing it. I just think he's going to go conservative again. And like you guys said, Eddie, yeah, I think he will. I think it was a trial run today, wasn't it, for that spot?
If it was a trial run, clearly they'll back out very well, didn't it?
No, it didn't. But unless Aubameyang's back, I don't know I don't know. They said maybe. I'm not sure exactly what the situation is, but
I think he might be close. But
yeah.
But either way, he didn't impress. Like he should have.
He had one chance, didn't he? I think I remember one chance in the first time. It was like a shot on the turn which got blocked. Yeah, I can't remember any others.
But even today's game, like just looking at the stats, like until that last shot from Martinelli, we only had two shots on goal all game at home.
Pretty bad.
And it's not like a one-off. I feel like every week I'm talking about how many shots on target that we're having on goal.
Like it's a tough league, isn't it? And I think we're not keeping up. It's a tough league, right? Like in both European competitions, we have two English clubs still in both. It's like there's a possibility we'll end up with a Champions League final of two English teams and a Europa League final of two English teams. It is a massively competitive league. We're just not up to the races at the moment. We're just not. Like, so all these guys, whether they're auditioning for a role, whether they are young talents that are that are going to be good in the future, whatever it is, every game you've got to deliver. You've got to take your chances. You've got to do something. You've got to the margins are so small, and geez, you're going to have the odd decision that's going to go against you, like we did today. I know we haven't talked about it, but that was a crucial decision at 0-0. But yeah, stuff like that will happen, and it's happening every game. And I think we are where we are right now, and it's a reflection on it's an accurate reflection, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I really hope they realize that, and they don't sit in the dressing room all going, well, it's not our fault.
Yeah, this season, I think you look at the teams above us, teams like Everton, Spurs. I know West Ham are flying, but I would probably put them in the same box as us at the moment. That's pretty crazy to say that right now. And Liverpool this season, in another season, we could maybe finish a point or two above Spurs, but we're never gonna at this rate. I don't see us ever finishing way above Spurs.
Why do you, sorry, Aaron, I was quite surprised what you just said. Why do you put us in the same box as Liverpool and West Ham? I mean, you said Spurs and Everton. Even them,
I think this way. I think if a couple of things had gone our way this season, there've been maybe 6 to 8 points where I think you can say we've been unlucky in games this season. And I think in an average season, you get that variance of about 6 to 8 points, where I think maybe we have those 6 extra points, we have those 8 extra points, and that puts us around that level. But what I don't think is we're never going to get.
I disagree. I mean, the only reason I say I disagree is, well, I mean, it's a big if. I'm not sure which instance or which matches you're referring to, but would you not just say over the course of the season we've just been crap, basically? We've been shit, and that is a reason why we are not.
I think we have been pretty crap, but
West Ham have been very, very good, which is why they're.
But take out West Ham, because I actually think West Ham. I think West Ham was probably a bad example, right? But I think Spurs this season, Liverpool this season, Everton this season, I see all 4 teams having roughly the same sort of crap season. Is my point here? In that I think at best, we are the sixth best team in this country.
At best, maybe. But I think like
all the teams above us are just scoring. Like, just looking at the table now, like they're all scoring goals, and that's what we're not doing at the moment. Like, we can cry about a dodgy decision here and there, but ultimately that's not why we lost the game. It's because we're not.
Well, I think part of the problem as well is that you can look at the other teams above us, and I think those teams, they genuinely, honestly, like I think fans of those teams look at it and go, "Oh, if a few other things went our way, do you know what? We could have actually been even higher." You know, I think they look at it in the same way that we do. We're isolating incidents in games which, if they went our way, we could have been better. Look, let's just take an example. We played West Ham at the beginning of the year, right? And we beat them 2-1, I think. Yeah. In that game, I don't know if you remember, we got a very, very lucky decision where Gabriel wasn't given handball, and it should have been, arguably, it could have been a penalty to, or it was either a penalty to them, or it basically shouldn't have been a goal for us. There was an incident in that game where we got very lucky. My point is, you know, it's easy for us to forget. Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's easy for us to forget some of the things that perhaps went our way. And some of those teams above us, genuinely, they could look at the season in the same way that we have and say, "Oh, if things went our way, we could be doing better." You know, so
I know what you mean. I think the point I was trying to make is we are still quite a way off top 5, top 6, and I think, even if those like marginal things have gone for us, we're not any better than Spurs this season, who I think Spurs have been really bad this season as well. Yeah. So that kind of just gives you that context. I think we've been so bad that even if all the little things have gone for us, we're still like at best on par with a really bad Tottenham team. Who just sacked that manager.
Agree with that. I mean, like we came into this period and we sort of thought, oh, this is going to be the bit which perhaps makes us kind of make some ground. We've got a fairly easy run in, and I think we're just showing our colours in some ways, aren't we?
We're getting worse. If anything.
We're getting worse. Exactly.
Raj, you touched on the disallowed penalty with the penalty that was, I guess, given and then wasn't given. I mean, just on the actual foul, I know it was not given for offside, which we'll come on to, but the foul that they actually reviewed and agreed that it was a penalty. Did you? I mean, it looked very, very soft to me. And Ceballos he's got a rep for, you know, exaggerating, which is putting it lightly. But yeah, it looked like he barely touched him, and he just.
I didn't think it was a penalty. No, if that had been given against us, I would have been fuming.
Is it really similar to the Gabriel one that we conceded the other week, where it's one of those like it's given, so it's really, you know, if it probably can't get overturned. Like it felt like that sort of. It was so minor in the contact.
I think it was. I thought it was
more contact with Gabriel than today.
Yeah. It's one of those where you think the referee is like, "Are you sure that's a penalty?" And I don't think you can say for certainty that is the penalty, just like Gabriel wasn't. So, like, like the VAR nonsense afterwards, like it just gets sillier and sillier every week. But I'm not that aggrieved with that by it, because I thought it was a very soft penalty. But you know, you get these things in games, right? And you just like, these are the things that make a difference between the wins and the draws and the defeats. And I just feel like we're getting done by these stupid offside decisions every other week.
Can't stand the
inconsistency. But ultimately, though, there was the right decision was made, although there's 2 wrongs to make that right decision.
Yeah, but that's what Nero. That's what I was saying last week, which I was kind of basically saying, I wish referees took a holistic decision and they looked at it and like you say, like I think in this situation, you could argue there's enough doubt in that, you know, the offside and this foul, maybe overall it's the right decision for the referee to not to give it. I quite like the idea that they could look at that. But last week they didn't do that. You know, do you remember? We got the opposite. That's
if they're doing it for then, they should do it now. And
exactly. Because that was not an obvious offside today at all. My goodness, that is a terrible decision. Like there was nothing to they didn't flag for offside. Like that's the elbow. Like it's potentially like an elbow may have been offside. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, so overall, holistically, I think yes, maybe the right decision. Like, but it's inconsistency because that should have happened last week and we didn't get it last week. So I can kind of understand why Arteta in his post match is there going like, what do you want me to do about like it? Like, you know, I guess he said words to the effect of, you know. Anyway, like you know, it's like a fortune teller. I think he was what he was trying to say is like, you know, almost like
what was the word he used?
Completely, he used astrophysicist or something like this.
No, he's been hanging out with Vinay too much, mate, when he's talking about that stuff.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to say this is just random. Like, just this is not scientific.
That's why I wasn't happy with that. I thought Arteta, he was trying to focus on the wrong things here. Like he was saying that we were much better than Everton. We weren't much better than Everton at all. Like we didn't. I think he did mention that we didn't create enough chances, which is fair. But then he was blaming VAR decisions. But in my opinion, there's no wrong VAR decision. It was the right decision made. We lost because we didn't create enough and we made a mistake. That's the fact, and that's what he should have come out and said, rather than trying to distract it and say VAR, and astrophysics or whatever it was.
I think Arteta, like, I don't pay too much attention to what Arteta says publicly. I think he comes out and a bit like what Pep does. He's never going to slag his players off publicly. So,
but he does say that he's disappointed with them and stuff. He has said that before.
I'll say he was disappointed, but he's never really like said, "Okay, we as a team aren't playing good enough." I'm willing to, like, if he genuinely is leaving the ground today thinking we played well, then there's a big problem. Yeah, I don't think, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that I think he knows we aren't playing well. We aren't creating chances. We aren't moving the ball around quickly enough. But publicly, he'll say what he needs to say, have an uncontroversial interview, and then deal with it in the dressing room.
Yeah, I disagree to the point where, like, I don't think that I can understand why he's annoyed, because I don't think, like, the decision was given for offside. That's how it was ruled out. It was ruled out for offside, and I think that was a joke. Like, I don't think it. Yeah. So
was the initial decision.
I know, mate, but in the end, it was ruled out for offside.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I guess he's probably saying, like, well,
is that not clutching at straws though? Like, massively clutching at straws. If he's saying that's the reason why we lost. If it was an obvious penalty, and then, like, if it's an obvious penalty, obvious foul, and then reversed because of the offside, then I would have been, like, pissed off and aggrieved. But I think ultimately it was the softest decision for a penalty. It was not a penalty.
I mean, the point is what you said, Nero, is that, you know, if he's saying after the game that we deserve to win or something like that, you know, words to that effect, like you said, we didn't at all. It wasn't a good performance.
No.
We weren't that bad defensively. Like, Everton are a good team; they're above us in the league, and all the rest of it. But again, it was just, you know, what do you say about a performance like that? It's just a bang average.
Drab.
It's just exactly. So, I mean, we could probably complain about this for a while until the next game, but we probably should move on. I mean, obviously there was the protest prior to the game. I wasn't able to go. I don't think any of us were able to go, unfortunately. But there's obviously a lot of coverage on it, and it was a really impressive turnout, wasn't it? Probably a few thousand. And I mean, I don't know, with these sort, I mean, I'm completely behind it. I don't know about you guys. I'm completely behind, you know, a protest like this. What difference? I was going to say, what difference do you think it makes? I guess what I mean by that question is, do you think the Kroenke see the images, the videos, the social media kind of impact of this, and it changes their view, perception, their kind of thought process in terms of their plan for what they want to do with the club, pushes them towards, maybe we should look to sell? Or do you think they're just like, it makes absolutely no difference to them?
I genuinely don't think Kroenke will see the protest. I think that guy is genuinely, like, clueless. He'll let Josh deal with everything. I think the actual real impact of the protest, what it could do is make sure that the board, the guys like Vinay and what's his name, Tim, whatever his name is, the other guy, the lawyer, and other folk put a lot of pressure up the chain because they know that Stan's not going to sell, and they know that if Stan's staying put, guys like Vinay, Edu are the ones that are really probably going to lose their jobs first. So they need to, send a rocket up to the board to say, look, what you guys are doing is unacceptable. The way you guys are managing and running this club is unacceptable.
They probably won't use those words, I guess.
Yeah, not unacceptable, but it needs more. And if I was Vinay, I would say, look, if you don't do this season, if there's a marginal call and we need 10 million, 20 million extra quid to buy this player that's going to really change our season, you've got to do it, because if you don't, these scenes are just going to get worse and worse. And I'm actually thinking, right, the best thing now for the club personally is actually for Kroenke to stay put, because we have an owner under pressure, I hope, who kind of knows that he has to pull it out of the bag. And we had the fans forum, and Josh took a bit of a beating. If these guys sell up and we get another rich billionaire come in, he's not going to care about that. He's just going to do what he wants. Again, we're going back to square zero, and it could be worse. It could be better, but I think actually the chances of us finding a better owner, if we're going with this billionaire, are actually quite low. Unless, I know there's a lot of talk about fan ownership and 51%, and that would be, it'd be cool. I don't know how it's going to happen unless it has to be a huge change in English football, like the biggest change in English football in our lives. Like, I wonder if we're far better off pushing the Kroenkes to change than risking getting someone potentially even worse.
Agree. There's one thing being annoyed at the Kroenkes, and I think things with protests, they don't always necessarily have to affect complete drastic change. It's not always the thing that has to happen. I think fans protesting in this way, it shows dissatisfaction, and it shows intent, and it shows it shows an opinion, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the result of that is such a, all right, well, I know people are saying hashtag Kroenke out. For me, the subtext around that is we're unhappy. It's not good enough. It's not right. And like your point, Aaron, like, I think the problem is that it's not a straightforward Kroenke out and who comes in. It's not that straightforward. When we think about all the people who've been linked with buying Arsenal in the past, there's the Nigerian guy Dangote, who has been linked for years. He's publicly come out and said, "Oh, I want to buy Arsenal. I want to buy Arsenal." I don't know anything about this guy. Any Nigerian I've spoken to, anyone who I've spoken to who knows about Nigeria is like, you don't want this guy owning your club.
Yeah,
he's not done well. He's not someone who really cares about his businesses. Like, he's not someone who does what's right. Anyway, my point is, it's very easy for us to go, oh, someone wants to buy a club. Yeah, they're going to be better. Right? Even today,
the whole Newcastle. What about Newcastle? They're begging for the Saudis to take over.
Yeah,
it's insane.
That's disaster. Yeah, but what about Usmanov before, though? Obviously, it was between Usmanov and Kroenke. And Usmanov, again, we wouldn't know anything about him, but someone like David Dean, who is, Arsenal culture, someone that we could sort of trust, if he sold his shares and he's backing someone like Usmanov, surely that would have meant that he had the club's best interest at heart, and he would have taken them the right direction. Because
do you think that's why David Dean sold? Do you think David Dean sold to Usmanov because he felt Usmanov was the right guy to take this club forward, or do you think it was financial?
No, but I think part of the agreement was he sells his shares, he takes ownership of his red and white holdings, holdings, and then when Usmanov takes over, then Dean will be back in as chief exec or whatever position. So
does Usmanov still own? Is he still involved in Everton?
I thought he was, but then
I think he's go on.
No, I can't remember. I thought he was as well. There's the other guy at Everton. Is it? What's his name? Mashiri. Yeah.
But sorry. Back to your original question, Myers. Like, I think because he lives in America, he can distract himself from all this like protest. He doesn't need to get involved. It's not going to affect him. Like someone like Levy, who lives in London, might it might impact his day-to-day a bit more if Spurs were to do the same protest. Stan living other side of the world. And again, like these guys are, he's a billionaire. Like he wouldn't have got to that position without facing this kind of adversity throughout his, business career. I'm sure he'd have had bigger challenges. So for him, he's thinking, let me ride it out. But at the same time, you can't. Obviously, before you'd have said, how much power the supporters and fans have, but at least in a positive, what we have shown as collective fans over the last week is that we do have a say in the sport.
I think that's what we have to aim for, right? Is we push Kroenke to sort out governance at this club, that he either puts more competent people in charge of making the football decisions so that the next time there's a Super League discussion, someone at the club has like the balls to say, no, don't do this, it's rubbish. Or you put in a governance structure where there's fan representation of some sort, at least competent representation. I've seen talk about putting Arsene Wenger on like a consultative type representative on the board, where you can just say, like, I'm the Kroenke, I'm the finance guy, I provide the numbers, I provide the backing, but I have zero input in any footballing decision at this club, and I hand those over to trusted people who are competent.
But do you think, in terms of this Super League, this is something he would have spoken to with the other owners and something he had in mind before he joined the club? As in, that would have been his sort of vision, exit strategy. I don't think he's smart. I
think some American advisors probably told him this.
To get the franchise system. We've got the franchise system, works in America. You're a billionaire from that. Take it to the Premiership in England or Europe and do the same thing. So that was probably, he saw dollar signs when he took over Arsenal. That was probably his long-term plan for us.
Every time I've heard him speak, I think I've honestly thought he sounds like an absolute moron. He does not seem like an intelligent guy. He's just a guy who wants to make money and has an interest in sports. And that's it.
Well, I think we should talk about this in much more extensiveness in isolation, because it's such a deep point around our ownership, our current ownership, what future ownership could look like. It's so complex, and I think what's clear is right now, whatever it is, it doesn't work for everyone.
Indeed.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, yeah, definitely agree with you, Raj. There's a lot to talk about there, isn't there? So definitely worthy of a separate chat, hopefully. I guess in the meantime, our season-defining kind of period, or a couple of games, is now coming up. Villarreal in 6 days. So we will be bringing you guys a preview of that closer to the game. So until then, as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.